Hey, Robert.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Nice
Welcome.
to meet you. All right, can we go talk?
Come on in.
Okay. Can you tell me your name and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Robert E. Handley. I'm a photographer, professional photographer. I've been kind of a collector all my life of different things, mostly the circus. Have a large Mickey Mouse collection. Always liked Mickey. And I've got some other things like some NASCAR. I'm a big NASCAR fan. And videos. I like videos. I like music. Got a large collection of CDs and movies that I watch.
So what do you do for fun outside of collecting?
Boy, now that's a good thing. I like to work. But I guess for fun, I assist other photographers and help them with the problems, help them with computer problems. I'm big on Macintosh computers, and I can work those things, programs. I seem to have a way of finding all this information out that other people just don't seem to be able to latch on to.
So what do your friends and family think about your collection?
Well, none of my family was too much involved. In fact, that's how I got into some of this collecting and stuff. When I was little, my mother was not diagnosed. She was manic depressive and obsessive compulsive. So she would never allow me to have any friends or anything in. She'd take me to school, bring me home from school. I was pretty much in solitary confinement. And so I had to find ways to entertain myself. And that's how I started with model building, collecting. That's how I got interested in the circus and building the miniature wagons and everything that I wanted to build a whole Ringling Brothers circus. But as time progressed, we went on to other things and never quite got it finished. But that's how I mostly did. So the family didn't really, they don't seem to have the same interest. And a lot of people, that's one of the things that I was worried about, is when you collect all this stuff, what is valuable to one person is trash to somebody else. I've watched people when they die, people come in and they start going through the stuff and they just throw things out on the curb that are very valuable. And that's where some of these picker shows and stuff come in, and you start to see how all of these people that have collected this stuff. And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here, but one of the shows that I watch all the time is American Pickers with Frank and Mike. And they go all over the country, and they go into the barns and stuff. They were in Florida last year, and they went to a lot of places where retired circus people had stuff. And these people are in their 80s and 90s. I don't mean an offense here, but they're close to leaving this planet. But they won't sell nothing. They won't cut anything. They're so attached to this stuff. And I know what they mean by this because it's memories that are ingrained in them. It's a way that they can relive their youth. It's a way that they can relive the past. And it gives them some solace of peace of mind.
Yeah.
But unless they've got something written down, it goes to the landfill.
Right. So can you tell me why your collection is important to you?
Well, everything that I've kind of collected over the years has some kind of either a person that I know. Take the poster behind me here. This gentleman was a clown long before I was born. And when I had this poster, I collected this poster before I even met him. And when I met him, he was a warm, friendly individual. And when I went to work for the Ringling Circus, he started giving me tips on clowning and makeup, and we became rather close friends. So the poster means a lot to me. That's why I won't take it off this wall. I have instructions that when I'm gone, it's to be taken down and taken to the museum that I've donated about 90% of my stuff to now, because I didn't want this stuff lost. These pictures and things, even now on Facebook, there's several groups that are up there about circus. And the other night somebody put an outfit, a uniform on. And they said, oh, this was for the band people or something. And I chimed in immediately and said, no, it wasn't. These were the uniforms that the employees were given to wear during the 60s, 64, 65, 68, 69, when we were in front of the people during this performance. They were taken off immediately after the performance, and then we used our regular clothes for loading and unloading and everything. But they thought because of the way they were, they must be a part of the band or something. As Ringlings progressed, even today, the superintendents wear black shirts with a logo on it. All of the other performers have uniforms and things. It's professionalism. Back when I first started in the 60s, gray coveralls.
Cool. Does your collection define you?
I think mostly out of all the things that I have, I'm mostly remembered from my time with the circus and the people I met. I was very fortunate when I got on. Most of the management of the Ringling Brothers Circus at that time were from Bloomington. And the general manager, Harold Genders, the timekeeper, Eldon Day, the bookkeeper, Grace Killian, just to name a few. And most of these people went to school with my father. They knew my father. And so I was given, I told them I wanted to learn from the ground up. And so the first thing they gave me was a pair of coveralls and a shovel. And they introduced me to all the things that the wonderful circus animals leave behind as they do their acts. And then I worked my way up. With my drafting ability, I started drawing plans for them for rigging, ring curves, wagons. I started doing a little clowning on the side. And at that time, Ringling still owned the circus. I never met John Ringling North. He was rather evasive, but his brother, younger brother, Henry Ringling North, came to the show every summer and spent a month or two with the show. And him and I became friends because I knew his Aunt Ida from my time in Baraboo. And he called me aside one time out in California, Cow Palace. And so he told me, he made me a deal. He told me if I go back and get my high school diploma, there'd be a job waiting for me in management when I came back. And he would give me money to get back home to go to school. Because we didn't get a lot of money for our work. I made $40 a week, and out of that came porter fees and everything else. So I didn't really want to go. It was, we were just getting ready to open a Cow Palace. The Beatles were there. And so he said, well, you only have two choices. He says, I'm not going to be the cause of your destruction. He said, either you go back to school and get your diploma and come back, or I will fire you on the spot. I immediately held up my hand and said, and off I came. 4 days on a bus to get back to Bloomington. And then the next year, I went back and worked all summer with him. And came back for my senior year. And when I was graduating, they sold the circus.
Oh, wow.
I ended up getting a scholarship. So I went on to Southern Illinois University. And then I attended during the summer. I would go and I would take pictures. But the new management in me didn't, it was changing. And while I hated to see the change, I could see that it had to change in order to survive. I have a way of looking to the future. I look to the past and remember what was, but you have to change or you die. And so after I got out of the college and everything, I took my drafting and went into work as a civil engineer for the city of Bloomington. I would go often to visit, but then I started my photography business. And then I got busy. I was shooting weddings. First year 25, second year 150. And it was like that for the next 50 years. I never had any time to visit the show as much as I would have liked. I only seen it a couple of times in that period of time. And I missed it. I missed a lot of things about it. The circus was a city within a city. It had its own laws. It had a mixture of people from all over the world. It was great for getting to understand different ethnic groups, which a lot of people fear more than looking at these as just human beings, just like us.
Right.
And so it was. I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. I got to see the entire United States and Canada, and I got to learn a lot about people. It was a great, great learning experience. And of course, I still collected pictures and posters and all this stuff. And even today, I answer a lot of questions online to people. They'll find something and they'll want to know what this was or how this was done. And the other day I was giving them some information on the seat wagons that supposedly was invented by Art Casello. But there was also seat wagons long before. And I'm sure Art's seen these. And from that gave him an idea for his, which were the better.
Right.
But that's how we progress.
Okay. Will you ever stop collecting?
No. Even though I've given 90% of my circus stuff to the museum that we're going to go and see in a little bit, I still see things and I grab it. And that stuff will go to the museum someday too. I'm not dead yet by a long shot. And I still like it, and it gives you something to go. One of the things right now, doing digital photography has changed so much that everybody has a camera now, and everybody thinks they're photographers now. And I've ended up being semi-retired before my time. And I tell you, I'm bored to death. I need things to do. I want to get in my car and go back to Florida. I want to go visit places down there that I haven't seen of the circus and visit people. When I was down there before, I ran into people that I worked with 50 years ago, and they still remembered me. I have that knack. Once you've met me, you never forget me for some reason. I don't know what that is. But it's a great thing. And also, you hear a lot of times about people when they retire, they either die shortly or they end up with Alzheimer's. You must keep using your brain. You must keep learning. Because if you don't do that, it dies.
Yeah.
It dies. So the more active you are, the more you keep learning, the healthier you're going to be.
Is there anything about your collection that you might know that no one else would know?
Well, as I stated earlier in there's a lot of things in my collection that I know the story behind the picture, the story behind the item. And other people have copies of these pictures or an item similar to it. And they'll put it online or something, and they'll ask about what this item was used for, or who are these people in this picture. Nobody remembers who they are. And then, of course, I can come online and fill in those blanks. And so, yeah, there's a lot of features and things in there that I know about. One of the things about photographs, and this really bugs me, and it doesn't apply to just collectible pictures, personal pictures. Everybody takes all of these at events and families and groups and people, and then they throw them in a drawer. They never write on the back who the pictures are, when it was taken, what date it was, and then they pass away. And somebody goes through the drawer, and I asked my cousin, Bob Weber, when my Aunt Margaret died, if he had any pictures in her boxes of my father when he was a little kid. He says, I don't really know, Bob. I looked through all that stuff. I didn't know any of the people. I just threw it in the barrel and burned it. Family history destroyed because one person didn't care. And nobody had anything written on it. Luckily, I found some pictures of my dad when he was a little boy that my mother had that I didn't know.
Wow.
I found them in her stuff. So she must have been giving them to her when they got married or something. But one advice I tell any collectors here that do photographs, write on the back of them when it was taken, who's in the picture, places, because that's history. And you never know in a picture, that little kid might be president someday.
Yeah, that's true.
And it happens more likely than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah. So that actually brings me to another really good question that I was going to ask is what is your family going to do with all this stuff that you have when you're...
I have no family left.
Oh.
My family's gone now. I'm not married, single. That's one of the things I was concerned about. So I've got an executor for my estate. I've written down where I won't move. I have a large collection of Bloomington history, old books, pictures and things of buildings, That's all supposed to go to the McLean County Historical Society.
Okay.
The Mickey Mouse collection, if the person doesn't want it, that's getting the stuff, they should have an auction house, put it online and auction it. Some of my Mickey Mouses are worth as much as $10,000 because they go all the way back to 1930. I have one of the limited edition of Walt Disney and Mickey. That's a bronze statue that is in front of the Magic Castle in Disney World.
Oh, wow.
There was only 100 of them made, and 99 of them were given as dignitaries. One guy didn't show up, I guess, because I was able to get a hold of it.
Wow, that's pretty good.
And then the NASCAR stuff, that's not a big thing. Family pictures, this may sound a little strange, but I've elected on cremation, and my mother had a beautiful Lane cedar chest, and they were supposed to get a little box and put me in that, and all of the personal family pictures that I have are supposed to be taken that aren't already in there, taken out of frames and put in there, box sealed, put in the best vault money can buy that's airtight, sealed, waterproof, and goes with me.
Okay.
I learned that from the pharaohs in Egypt. I am taking it with me.
Awesome.
Because otherwise it would end up in a trash can. It's of no value to anybody else but me, and I don't want it destroyed. The rest of my circus collection will go to the museum that's already got some of it.
Okay.
My photography equipment, if I still have it at that time, will be divided among my photography friends. And my house may go to a photography friend if he's still a friend around at that time.
Okay.
Things change. Things change all the time. So you never know. People, I may be still living and my friend may be gone. So I have worded my will in such a way that if I would be married, it would all go to my wife, no problem. If I am and not married, but I happen to have a living girlfriend, as some people do, it would go to her. She's not cut out just because I'm gone. And then if neither one of those take place, then the executor knows what to do with it. But it's protected. And that's another thing I recommend people. You don't ever think about the time that you're not going to be here. But from the time we're born, that day will come. And you really should have some things in writing. Or otherwise it's not going to end up where you might want it. Yeah, I worry about things like this. I've taken years of collecting things and putting things together, and they mean a lot to me. They may not mean a lot to somebody else. And so some people say, well, you won't be here. What do you care? Well, I do. I do.
There's a question that I've asked all of our guests who have been on, we've been talking to, and the last question I ask everybody is what matters most in your life?
I don't know. One of the things I might say that is a regret in my life, where I regret that I never found a soulmate. I regret that I don't have any children. I have been lucky enough to enjoy some of my clients' children. I've done a great amount of weddings over the years, and I became very close to many of these people. And they've shared their children with me, send me pictures and stuff at Christmas. I think one of the things as a photographer, and being a wedding photographer, that kind of makes me feel sad, is the number of weddings that don't make it, and the children that pay the price. And I can't help but wonder, they were so in love when they got married that day. What happened? What went wrong? Why couldn't it have been worked out? But it does. I think a lot of people today, it started changing for me in the 80s. And I started seeing people, it's almost like they were going in with a 5-year plan, like they're going to trade the car in and trade the wife or husband in and get a new one. And we paid some dear prices. I'm older than you. I think the 50s, you always hear about how great the 50s were. They were. They were. When the war was just over, people just came back. They had a real family. If you didn't get your groceries and everything by Saturday night at 9 o'clock, everything was closed on Sundays. Sundays was family day. Whether you went to church or not, the parks were full of people having picnics and having. Now, even on holidays, people have to get up from the table and leave and go to work because a store has to open. It can't wait one more day to make a sale. It has to break up families. And I think these are some of the things that break up families today. What means a lot to me today, I think, is seeing people happy, seeing people together, seeing them loving each other. And it's something that we don't say a lot of today. Being by yourself isn't really great. And some people don't realize until it's too late. So I don't know if I explained that correctly, but it's just, taking more time for each other and not being so greedy in life.
Sounds like some good advice.
So I want my stuff to continue to make people happy when I'm gone, to continue to educate people when I'm not here anymore. That I took the time to save this stuff, that it wasn't destroyed, and that people can enjoy it for many, many years to come.
Are there any stories, additional stories you might have that you think might be memorable to capture, to tell our audience?
Well, in my photography experience, one of the greatest things about becoming a photographer for me, I wasn't just your run-of-the-mill portrait photographer. I did commercial photography. I've worked with celebrities. That started with the circus, getting to know people. People like names that a lot of kids don't even know today. Red Skelton, Jack Benny, George Burns. Just so many. And knowing these people, knowing Johnny Cash. I know a lot of country music people. I got to open these doors. I will tell you a little story I was photographing George Burns once. And they told me when they came in the room, we only had a limited time, that I was only to address him as Mr. Burns. I wasn't supposed to touch him, and I was supposed to get the picture. And they had like about 15 minutes to do it in. So you have to be set up and ready to go. Here comes George in the room, and they have a couple of these Las Vegas showgirls on both arms. And as soon as they get in the room, they cut off, and he walked over, and they introduced Mr. Handley. This is Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns, this is Mr. Handley. He's your photographer. And the guy stepped back, and George smiled at me with that cigar in his hand, and I reached out to take his hand and said, George, I'm so glad to meet you. I said, I have admired you and enjoyed your comedy for so many years. I said, you got to tell me, what's your secret? How do you get these girls? I mean, God, you're 98. He took hold of my shoulder and he drew me and he said, they know I can't do anything. He said, but let me tell you something. He said, I was married. He said, you don't know her, but her name was Gracie. He said, we met in vaudeville. He said, I'm going to be with her again before long. He said, where are you from? And I said, Bloomington, Illinois. Oh, Gracie and I used to play the Majestic Theater there. Sure. The person that introduced us is glaring at me. But what that person doesn't realize, I got to get this man relaxed. I want to get a portrait of him that's not stiff. I had the same thing with Ronald Reagan when I worked with him.
You mean Ronald Reagan?
I worked with Ronald Reagan for 11 years, off and on. He wanted me to come to Washington, and I didn't want to leave here.
Wow.
But I became friends with him and Nancy. A wonderful, warm person, caring person. But everybody they don't want to give you any time to do anything. They limit it. I could tell you a story there, but I don't think it'd be real good on camera, so I won't.
So do you think we can go see your stuff at the museum?
Yeah, that'd be great. I've talked to Maureen, and she's going to be expecting us, and I think they're going to have some of my stuff out that I can show you. that I've donated over there.
Okay, maybe we can talk to her too. That'd be great.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we're here at the Illinois State University Milner Library. Can you give me your name and what it is you do here?
My name is Maureen Brunsdale. I am the Special Collections and Rare Books Librarian.
Okay. And what is the library's interest in Bob Handley's collection?
Bob Handley was a local boy who ran away with a circus, and we're always interested in collecting circus stories, circus material, ephemera for our Circus and Allied Arts collection.
So how do you think people will perceive Bob Handley's collection here when they get a chance to come by and see it?
You know, I think from what little people know of his collection right now, I think the response will be tremendous. I think historians are going to want to know about the older material that came from Robert, and I think present, perhaps Gamma Phi circus students might want to learn about his stilts or his story as he ran away with the circus.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. So Maureen, can you tell me a little bit about what Bob gave you here?
Yeah, these are materials that came from the barn. You'll hear circus performers talk about the barn in Bloomington.
Mm-hmm.
That barn in Bloomington was the trapeze factory, if you will. It
Oh, wow.
produced, it's where trapeze people performed in the winter time to perfect their craft before they went out trooping in the season.
Wow.
What we're looking at here are some of the materials that came from that barn, as I said, and you're seeing some superstars of trapeze. Alfredo Cadona, still considered the best flyer ever.
Wow.
He's in a restaurant in Berlin. The year is 1932, as you can see on the film, and he's sitting with Art Kinsella. Art Kinsella is, at this time, a young man who is up and coming. He's a flyer or a trapeze performer in his own right. He eventually will take the center ring spot from Alfredo Cadona when Alfredo ruins his shoulder.
Oh, wow.
It's a big, big deal. In Berlin as well, in some of these other photos, you have them practicing in the Scala Theater. And you have Alfredo doing this kind of publicity shot of pointing to something that should be corrected. You have them in the net, all the great flyers of the day. Alfredo Cadona's catcher was his brother Lalo, for example, and you have Antoinette, who was a beauty. I mean, she looks like a Hollywood star,
Yeah,
doesn't she?
Yeah.
She married Art Kinsella when they were 18 and 19 years old, respectively.
Wow.
She has a great story in and of herself. She was actually studying to be a nun, and then she went
Wow.
to visit a circus in Detroit and never went back to that nunnery.
Wow.
She said when asked, you know, what's the difference between studying to be a nun and being a trapeze performer?
Yeah.
She said, well, it's the difference between calluses on your knees and calluses on your hands.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Fantastic.
I mean, it's really great to see your passion for this kind of thing, for the circus and what
Yeah.
Bob Handley happened to bring in, and how much more did he give you than what you already had obtained before?
Well, I don't know if this is answering that question, but I can tell you that we knew that Alfredo Cadona was in Berlin. We knew the Kinsellas were in Berlin around the same time, but until we actually got them photographed in the same place, we couldn't say that their lives ever intersected. And it was Robert Handley's collection that proved that. So it's a big, big deal.
That's amazing. That's
Mhm.
really cool. So
Practice fly bar that came from the barn. I mean, imagine holding on to that and swinging off into the distance. It's mind-boggling. I would never.
it'd be the last thing I ever did. For sure. So okay, well that's awesome. That's great. So okay, well thanks for showing us around.
Yeah,
We
well,
appreciate
thank
that,
you.
for sure. So Robert, what is all this stuff? Can you give us some descriptions of what's going on here?
Well, these are some of my props from when I was with Ringlings. This is my hat that I wore when I walked on stilts, and this is a smaller version of stilts that we used to do for children and publicity and stuff. And then I could interchange the legs to longer legs that they've got stored back there somewhere, and then that puts me up higher. I didn't get as high as Barry and Sheila Sloan, and of course I didn't break my back like Barry did. This was a trunk that I kept a lot of my clothing and props in. I had another suitcase too.
So what was your role in the circus? What did you do for them?
Well, when I first went, as I told you earlier, I told the gentleman I wanted to learn everything from the ground up. So they gave me a pair of coveralls and a shovel, and I followed the elephants and left picked up anything that they left behind. And then I just gradually worked my way into loading and unloading, assistant superintendent of transportation for a while, did a little clowning, filling in. I even did, when Harold had a sore throat, I even did a little announcing.
Wow.
My voice tends to carry, as some people have already found out today. So I learned a little bit of everything. When I went to the show, like all the management was from Bloomington. They went to school with my father. They knew Dad. Dad was very well liked. And so I did get a little preferential treatment. I had a lot of fun with them. Deacon Blanchfield, who was with the show all through the 30s, loading and unloading. Charles Smith, who was the train master. It was really a unique experience that most people just couldn't believe how, like I say, Charlton Heston used to say when they were filming the Greatest Show on Earth, if you spend too much time there, you're going to get sawdust in your veins.
Are any of those people still around today? In the circus, are any of those people still around today?
Not too many from when I was there. They were all much older than me, and they've all passed. There's a few. When I went to Florida a couple years ago to visit, I ran into Sheila Sloan, who was a stilt walker. Her husband took my design and used it on his stilts because it used to be all one leg going up, and when you walked on it would cause your legs to want to bowl. But with this, it was like an extension of your leg, and you could balance much easier and walk long distances. But Barry had passed away a few years before. Her son was now almost as old as I am, and I don't remember, he was just a kid when I was with the show. And there's still a lot of people in the area that are in their later years. I wanted to get back and visit them. Rudy Bundy's grandson operates a train in Sarasota, which is a restaurant called Bob's Train. And he's trying to restore the John Ringling private railroad car that was called Jomo. And he's trying to raise money and doing a little bit as he can.
So what do you miss most about the circus?
I really like the traveling. I like the music. I like the performance, the people, the excitement, the color, the animals. I was friends with all the elephants, and they seemed to like me too. And a few tigers.
How old do elephants live? Do you know?
They live quite a number of years. I don't know exactly. I never did ask any of them. But I think they live to be 100 years or a little bit longer.
Wow. So,
but they have fantastic memories. And I'll tell you a little story real quick here. There was in Milwaukee the year before, there was a guy that went through and he had a sharp object, and he would stick the elephants in the trunk with it. And they didn't catch him. Next year we were there, and we were all alerted to watch if this guy came through again. Well, the elephants were all inside the arena, and they were all chained. The chain just kind of keeps them in place. If they want to walk, they walk. They take the chain right with them.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, as the people were walking through, looking at the animals and stuff, all of the elephants started getting very restless and grunting, and their trunks were going back and forth. And all of a sudden, this one elephant reached out and grabbed this guy and lifted him up in the air and flung him against the wall.
Whoa.
He came down on the floor unconscious. Everybody got panicky. They cleared the people out real quick. And of course, they're trying to revive this guy. And then what fell out of his pocket was a compass. And they knew who they had. Those elephants, they have an acute sense of smell. They knew this guy. They remembered him.
Wow.
And boy, they nailed him.
So that's where that...
Now, he wasn't seriously injured, but they arrested him and hauled him off.
Wow, so that old saying holds true.
Elephants are very family-oriented.
Right.
And they're actually very gentle creatures. But every so often, somebody sneaks through that abuses them.
Wow.
And like anybody, they get even.
Yeah. I don't think I'd want to pick a fight with an elephant or a
Well,
lion.
if you look at some of the books and stuff, you'll see the old days when the circus used to pull in the wagons, and they used these kind of wheels right here. This wheel, you and me couldn't even lift this. It is so heavy. but there'd be rainy lots, and these wheels would sink right up to here in the mud.
Wow.
Now they had Caterpillar tractors with chains on them, couldn't pull them out. 2 elephants get behind one wagon, push it right out, effortlessly,
Wow.
like it was nothing.
That's amazing.
That's how much power they have. They would usually put a pad on their forehead to protect their heads. Elephants, they usually the bull hook that I showed you over at my store. You look at that big point, people say, "Oh, they're poking that elephant." An elephant's skin is almost 2 inches thick.
Wow, that's pretty thick.
That's just like a nudge.
Yeah.
But when they whack him in the trunk, that hurts.
Mm.
And that is a brutality to the elephants.
Wow.
And the elephants are very important. Henry Ringling North told me once when there was some animal stuff laying on the floor, and he started to pick it up with a shovel with his $400 or $500 suit. I told him, "I'll get it, Henry." And he said, "That's okay, you do what you're doing." And he picked it up. And then afterwards he explained to me how valuable these elephants and animals and cannibals, how much training and how much they cost. And if one of them would slip and break their legs or something, what the loss would be to the circus. So and nobody was too good to pick that stuff up
Right.
and protect those animals.
Yeah.
And I don't care what PETA says. Ringling Brothers takes extremely good care of their animals. They even have a retirement home for elephants, and I think it's in Tennessee,
Wow.
where old circus elephants and zoo elephants go to live out the rest of their days, and they are very well cared for.
That's good. That's excellent. Well, I think that's everything that we wanted to know about the circus and your role in that. But I do appreciate your time and coming out and showing us all your stuff. So it's been
Well, Chris,
really
I've
cool.
enjoyed our time together today and discussing all of these things and bringing up old memories, and especially thank Maureen and the Illinois State University Special Collection for allowing us to come out and view some of the stuff and let people know that it's here to see.
Definitely.
And here to learn. What I told you, one of the reasons I gave it here is that I wanted people to continue to be able to enjoy and learn from it. And that's what it's all about. And when we have people like Maureen and Mark, who's in the other office there, that care passionately about this stuff, as I do, and many others do. And also the Gamma Phi Circus, which is one of the oldest collegiate circuses in the United States, which is every March puts on a show here. If they haven't seen it, it's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous.
All right. Well, Robert, we do appreciate your time.
I thank you.
And thanks. All right. Okay. Okay.